Okay, well, good morning. I'll officially call to order the regular meeting of Coachella Valley Water District Board of Directors. It's April 22nd, 2025 here in Coachella.
Happy Earth Day.
Earth Day. Yep, for all you Earth mothers out there.
And Father.
And fathers.
What's an Earth Mother?
You don't know what an Earth mother
No,
is?
what's an Earth Mother?
Mother Earth? Maybe we should talk about that closer.
That's, yeah.
I think you're showing your age.
Maybe I am. I mean, I was very young in the 60s, but I was alive. All right, so would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call, please.
Good morning, President Powell,
Here.
Vice President Estrada,
Here.
Director Bianco,
Here.
Director Aguilar,
Here.
and Director Nelson will be absent for this meeting.
Yep.
Thank you.
Are there any additions, deletions, or adjustments for today's agenda?
No, sir.
Me either. Is there any member of the public wishing to comment at this time? Seeing none. Can you hear me? Is this thing working? It feels really light, doesn't it? Okay. Our consent calendar consists of items 5A through E. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pass 4-0. One absent. On to the action calendar. We have 7A, and it looks like Clerk Bermudez is presenting this policy for local community contributions and sponsorships.
I am. Good morning, President Powell, members of the board. If you recall, sometime back in January, the board, or previously the board had asked for a policy to be drafted. We brought a draft in January, and the board had some additional comments and suggestions to add to the policy, which have been incorporated into the policy to try and provide some guidelines for staff in identifying sponsorships that would fall in within CVWD's mission statement and policies. Council has reviewed and commented, as well as finance and public affairs and communication has also reviewed the policy and has provided comments and feedback.
Okay. Go ahead.
I read it. It's kind of short and sweet. I was wondering what the red lines were for. I think I was kind of confused. I was thinking maybe we had adopted this policy already and we're bringing it back for revisions. But the revisions are fine. It's just a general question.
No,
How do we get a red line version?
When we brought it in January, it was not actually adopted. The board had some comments, and so we incorporated some of those, which are the red line versions.
Okay.
I think we added just very minor.
Yeah, no,
revisions.
and there were good revisions. I think in particular, I like the kind of the flexibility of and not being so specifically tied to, you know, the wording of water, but other benefits. And so I thought that was great. I don't have any issue with it. The one other comment is there are other agencies, IID's one of them, other local cities that sometimes provide scholarships, and I know some folks might have like a limit. I don't know if others do, but those were comments that we made when we first started talking about this. Was, hey, well, you know, there's somehow and for some reason agencies provide these scholarships, you know, to kids, or you're going to go somewhere or something like that. And so I was wondering what is the difference here between local community contribution and sponsorship? Is there a difference between those two, or is it the same thing? And then, did you look into? I think you said that you were going to look into kind of like the breakdown of other agencies to try to come up with the limits, and I did see you had some limits in there, you know, 5,000 one time and no more than 10,000 in a year. When you looked into that, did you run into those kind of scholarship criteria or anything like that?
I did. So one of the things that, and I think it was discussed in January, that we outlined if we wanted to create just a general budget, that would be essentially shared amongst the board, or create individual budgets. We've seen both in agencies like cities and counties and others. You will find that each division is given a budget, let's say 5,000 per board member, per district, per division, or a general pot of, let's say 20,000, however that is. So I don't recall the board providing direction on that, because I did go back and listen to the board meeting. That was something that I think we just decided on, a general pot of money to be utilized for various sponsorships or contributions that fall within the policy and also within the board's
Yeah,
discretion.
I'm okay with it. I'm just asking general questions. I'm not trying to make more out of this or take away from it. I'm just wondering, I know when the conversation came up, when I made comments, I was specifically referring to IID. And I'm just wondering if you have any sense of what their policy looks like. I know that I often see social media posts where they're providing scholarships to children, I think to maybe schools, just a whole host of kind of community sponsorship. And I'm just wondering if you in general just happen to know what their policy looks like.
In my experience, a actual scholarship is usually a separate policy in that it's named for someone or for some reason, and then there's some criteria for giving that scholarship. If it's donations or sponsorships to elementary schools, that would fit within this policy. So things like that for engineering or STEM or whatever it is that is indirectly tied to water, wastewater, I've seen that encompassed in this policy that you have here today. If it's something more formal in terms of a scholarship to a high school or college or something like that, that's usually a separate policy. Is that?
So yeah, okay. So do you think that if a school came to us for a sponsorship related to some event that they had, and because it might be tied to engineering or STEM or whatever, that would be covered with this?
Yes, that would be covered in here. But
Okay.
if you're doing something more formal in terms of an actual scholarship, that would be a separate.
Okay.
And that was kind of the intent we tried to do with the policy. We started with a very rigid policy, and then after hearing some comments and discussions, we decided to kind of leave it a little bit more broad, so that it gave the board a little greater discretion on what we could sponsor.
All right. Well, thank you. I just had general questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve this 7A?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, passed 4-0. Next is B.
I agree.
These are the three engineers' reports. Hi, Ivory, good morning. It's on there now.
Oh, yeah, I asked her about that.
Isn't that nice?
It's not on mine.
Good morning, President
Morning.
Powell, members of the board. I'm Ivory Rayburn, Water Resources Supervisor. As required by the State Water Code, Section 31631, staff prepared the 2025-2026 Engineers Report on Water Supply and Replenishment Assessment. Next slide.
Oh, hold on. I don't think Yolanda, can we bring that up? Thank you.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Okay, perfect. The report provides an updated description of groundwater conditions based on the SIGMA annual reports that were presented to you at the March 11th board meeting. Water levels are stable in the 3 areas of benefit, and artificial replenishment continues to be necessary to maintain positive trends in the basin. We continue to observe a localized decrease of water levels near the TEL replenishment facility as expected due to decreased deliveries in the past 2 years as part of the Colorado River Conservation Agreements. As required, the report also includes updated groundwater production and groundwater replenishment totals for calendar year 2024. The report also includes updated income statements for each RAC fund. No RAC rate increases are being proposed this year. The RACs currently in effect will continue at the existing rates that are listed here on the slide. The recommended action is for the board to acknowledge receipt of the engineer's report as required by the State Water Code. Please let me know if you have any questions. I can go through the remaining slides, or we can move right to the recommendation.
I don't know. We can move quickly.
Well, I have a question.
Yes.
Why is the rate difference
The rates,
so significant in West Whitewater?
the 3 different rates are established by the costs of administering the replenishment assessment program, so the costs of maintaining the facilities.
Yeah, I'm sorry, can you speak up?
I'm sorry.
I'm old and can't hear.
Sorry. The 3 different rates are based on the costs of administering the program, including costs of maintaining the facilities, as well as staff time and any administrative costs. So the cost of water that is replenished at the Whitewater facility has a higher cost than the water we replenish at the other facilities. That's the major cost that goes into the rate.
Okay.
Okay, so the recommendation is to approve the engineer's report. Or accept it, receive it.
Acknowledge receipt.
Acknowledge receipt.
Acknowledge receipt. Yeah, we don't even approve it. We just acknowledge receipt. But we do need a motion to do those. Is there a motion to acknowledge receipt of these reports?
I'll make a motion. It looks really good.
Thank you.
Second that too. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pass 4-0. Yeah, it does look good.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Ira.
Ivory.
Finance. I feel like I've seen this one a few times. Carla, go ahead. This is the rolling the note. Yeah.
We do have a few people on Zoom that may be able to answer questions, maybe some technical questions the board may have, but for now, Darren and I are going to give you the presentation. Yes. So good morning, board members. You're right, President Powell, this is the 3rd time you have heard about this item. We did bring it forward to the board on February the 18th as a initial discussion of our options to pay the 2022A domestic notes, which are due June 1st of 2025. And then we also discussed it during our Finance Committee meeting on April the 3rd. We do have Darren Hodge here from PFM. We've been working really closely with him since January to come up with a strategy with him and Stradling and a few other folks that are understand all the laws and regulations regarding these types of transactions, which are granted very complex. And so we had a lot of discussions to this point, but I'll let Darren go ahead and give us a presentation, and then both Darren, myself, and then Stradling is on the line, as well as representatives from U.S. Bank and also J.P. Morgan Chase. So this is the clicker, Darren.
Thank you. Good morning. Good seeing you again. Let's see.
On the side.
I'm sorry. It's not just me.
Is it on?
Never mind. It was just me. All right. So starting off, you might remember we wanted to just begin with an overview of the different elements of the plan of finance that we have for 2025 and 26. So the first and really the point of today's presentation will be addressing the maturity of the 2022A notes. The other element present over the next 18 to 24 months is that we also have CIP financing needs that the district's identified in domestic water. Worth noting that the timing and how those will be funded or financed is still TBD, so we won't get into a lot of detail on that today, but just acknowledging that it is a point of discussion here over the next 2 years. So starting off with an overview of the 2022A notes, really, these notes were issued in February of 2022 to fund what we're going to call the USDA project. So a number of projects that were identified with a long-term financing source of USDA loans and grants. At the time, we sold these bonds in a par amount of about $35.2 million at a very low interest rate. The interest rate on these bonds was about 1.3% because interest rates at that time were incredibly low post-COVID, the actions the Fed had taken. So the decision at that point was we looked at a number of ways to finance it: public bonds, bank loans, et cetera. Public bonds was the cheapest cost of financing, so that's what the district pursued. Now, that were originally identified as uses of these funds. That's and that's an important point that we'll come back to in terms of the plan of finance with regards to the 2025A financing. So quickly, just an overview of the USDA loans. We have 2 letters of condition. I won't go through the details. We've gone through this before. But essentially, we have 2 different loan agreements, one for about $2 million, one for approximately $23 million, and then 3 different grants that sum to about $5 to $6 million. Again, the USDA loans, very low interest rate, and so the point here is to try and as much as possible preserve the ability to utilize these USDA loans as long-term financing. Again, one of the items that we have been looking at here over the next several years is that the district has identified new money needs in the domestic water fund of about $56 million through fiscal 2028. Given the timing, the cost, and the nature of these projects, we're not recommending a definitive plan of funding or finance at this time, but worth noting that we are looking at several alternatives. In addition, in discussions with the board, using interim financing, whether it's through an interfund loan or some other form, to help finance those until a longer-term financing strategy is determined if it's needed.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop you for
Sure,
a little bit, just so I
absolutely.
can follow along here. Back to slide number 4.
Yep.
There's this letter of conditions. You have 6 projects, and you have letter of condition 1, letter of condition 2. And I think I'm assuming it's tied to the status or when you're able to draw down. Can you explain what that means? How does letter condition 1, letter condition 2 play into this conversation?
Yeah, so the reason that we had to issue the 2022A notes is because you can't draw on the USDA loans until the projects are complete. So USDA, the program requires you to provide your own construction financing, and so the purpose of the notes was to provide that financing. Once the projects are complete, we're able to draw on the USDA loans and receive the grants to pay off or pay down the construction financing. Does that answer your question, Director?
Maybe define, so what is a letter of condition?
So that's essentially the interim agreement with the USDA.
Okay, and so then, when you say you have letter of condition 1, that means that you've secured a letter saying that you have a finance mechanism for that? For that
Correct.
particular project?
But it's worth noting that each of these projects has to be complete. It's not just as, let's say, North Shore Pipeline's complete, we can draw a portion of it. All of these projects have to be complete before we can draw on the loan.
Okay, so you have a letter that kind of captures the reservoir, and then you have a letter that captures those other 3 projects?
Correct.
Okay, and then that means that the letter of condition is a letter from USDA that says when you finish the project, we'll reimburse you? Okay. All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So on slide 6, what we're going to go through is just how we propose the plan of finance occurring here for the next 18 to 24 months. So first and foremost, we have to address the maturity of the 2022A notes. So those notes mature on June 1st, 2025. And so what we're proposing and recommending is that we enter into a bank loan with JP Morgan to essentially roll these notes for another 3 years. As we'll talk about, there's some mechanisms within the note that give us some flexibility, but essentially what that allows us to do is we have a 12-month call option on that note, and so that allows us as early as May of 2026 to pay off that note or pay down that note, because remember, the notes were also used for a portion of non-USDA projects. So if our long-term plan, sorry, keep hitting now with my hand motions, but if the long-term plan of finance for those projects involves bonds or some other form of long-term financing, we can refund that portion of the notes in 12 months and convert it from a note to long-term bonds. So there is a lot of flexibility incorporated within this plan of finance. And so that's really the reason that we went with this mechanism versus, say, just rolling the bonds in the public market, which might be less flexible.
Are we gonna complete these projects in the next 3 years?
That's the plan, sir.
But that does raise an excellent point, Director, because part of the reason that we're rolling it for 3 notes, for 3 years, is because under the terms of our legal documents, there's a treatment of how these single notes are calculated for purposes of our debt service coverage. As long as we keep it under about 40 months, we're able to calculate it as excluded principal. In other words, we don't have to treat that maturity of $35 million as a single debt service payment. If we had to treat it in that way, that could cause some issues with our rate covenant. So there's a strategy behind why we're choosing that three-year maturity.
So we have to keep it under 40 months.
Correct.
Okay. And that clock starts
The day that we close.
the day that we close this new agreement.
Correct.
Okay. Has nothing to do with what we already did the last 3 years.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
This slide number 6 is still all about the 35 million?
Correct. It's about the 35 million, May of 2025, but the other element here is the additional financing needs that the domestic water fund may have. And so if you look that, from May 25 to May of 26, the district's anticipating spending funds in the domestic water for the non-USDA projects. And so the intent is that during this time period, we could use interfund loans to help finance those projects on an interim basis. In the beginning, May of 26, we could say, do we want to take those out with long-term bonds, or how do we want to fund those or finance those longer term? It gives us 12 months to figure that out, but also get a better understanding of what's the status of the projects, what's the spend on the construction. Gives us more time to understand kind of that reality.
Okay, thank you.
So what happens if projects don't get finished after the 36 months but before the 40?
So the USDA projects?
Yeah.
So if they don't get finished within that time frame, what we would do is we would come back and just roll the note for, we would talk to the district and figure out how long do you think that construction will take? And then we would just roll the notes for another period of time, just to, again, preserve that ability to use the USDA loans.
I have a question. Are the USDA funds at risk? I know we've had some discussions with USDA about not meeting certain thresholds, and we've been trying to meet and sort of advance that. And Carla, you're looking at some notes, but I'm wondering, is there an update on those discussions?
We are actively working with USDA. We did ask for an extension on projects, and we received a letter from them on February 7th of 2025, basically stating that the funding time limit request should be made after the bidding process is completed and all the construction contracts have been awarded. And they would only accept an extension 6 months prior to March 31st of 2027. And so they have very limited ability of when and how they would entertain an extension of the funding. But we did already initiate that conversation with them. We'll continue to have those conversations, but essentially they are it's based on their terms within those letters of condition that are associated with the USDA projects.
Thank you.
So on slide 7, these provide our good faith estimates of what the cost of this 2025 transaction will entail. So currently, the interest rate on the notes at the time that we received the RFP responses was about 4.1%. We did get an update from the bank. That rate's about 15 basis points lower right now. So we won't actually set that rate until we close next week, so that it is subject to market conditions, which, as you're probably aware, have been somewhat volatile. The fees paid to third parties, so that's myself, our legal counsel, the bank counsel, so JP Morgan's counsel, our trustee, about $144,000. And in terms of the defeasance of the 2022A notes, we're estimating a not to exceed par amount of $37.5 million. Although it's worth noting, we're anticipating that par amount will be smaller. We're only going to be borrowing for whatever it cost to roll the notes. So on this last slide, what I want to talk about is just what are the benefits of this plan of finance and why is the strategy that we're recommending. So first and foremost, we're recommending the bank loan. We did look at a variety of options, rolling the notes in the public market. The advantage of a bank loan is that it's a more efficient process. We don't need disclosure, so we don't have to put out a public offering document. That saves us time and money. We don't need ratings because it's just an agreement directly with the bank. In addition, there's flexible provisions. We were able to get a 12-month call. That's very important, just given the plan of finance that we're expecting here over the next 24 months. And lastly, if we do need to roll it in the future, obviously subject to the bank's willingness to roll, but that process of rolling the note could be more efficient. We may not have to go through a whole nother process. We can just reach out to the bank, say what's the rate, and then roll it with them and save on issuance expenses. The second advantage is that rolling the notes in this manner allows us to preserve the ability for tax-exempt refinancing in the future. Two-parter, if for whatever reason the USDA loans are not available or we don't utilize them, we would still retain the flexibility then to finance these long-term with tax-exempt bonds. In addition, for the non-USDA projects that were financed with the note proceeds, we also preserve the ability next year to take those out with tax-exempt bonds. If we just use an interfund loan to take these out, we would lose that flexibility for tax-exempt financing down the road. Lastly, just kind of a note, over the next 12 to 24 months, if we do use interfund loans to finance some of our project costs, it's critically important that we monitor the timing of expenditures and the timing of completion of our projects. Under our reimbursement resolution, tax law allows us a certain amount of time to finance those with tax-exempt bonds should we wish. So we do think that the interfund loan is a good strategy to help finance those cost interim. We just need to be aware of not losing that flexibility with regards to completion of these projects and the timing of the expenditures.
On that first bullet, can you do a partial prepayment at that 1 year mark?
You can.
Right. I mean, that's a possibility. Yeah. Okay.
So without doing a more public process as opposed to this private process you're talking about, do we feel comfortable that the rate that we're getting is competitive? And does the rate go up or down depending upon when we close, or is it fixed?
It is, so it's a fixed rate. The rate will adjust until we close. So we are subject to interest rate risk for the next week. Versus a public, when we went out for bids, a public offering would have been slightly less in interest rate, but less flexible in terms of the ability to close on our time schedule, the prepayment features, et cetera. The loan gave us that right mix of being able to close before June and also have the flexibility to prepay it a year from now at a reasonable cost. So you're giving up a little bit in interest rate for additional flexibility and efficiency in closing the transaction. And so that completes my presentation, but happy to answer any.
Yeah, I have a few more questions here.
Absolutely.
Just trying to follow along. So the 22A series, the notes, those are that's a bond, you said?
It's a note, but a public issuance, yes.
And when you say rolling it with the bank loan, is that this bank loan, or what are we proposing to get a loan to make the payment on this?
Exactly. So the 2025 loan is going to roll the 2022 note. Essentially, we're just extending the maturity by another 3 years. And so that's what we're referring to as a roll. We're paying off the 22 notes with the 25 loan.
Yeah, we don't have that loan yet? That's what this is
That's
about?
going to close next week, correct?
Trying, yeah.
Okay, and that's what you're saying is the 15 points that we're gonna lock maybe something lower? Because right now you're showing at 4 point something interest.
Correct. So when we talked to the bank last week and got an updated rate, that rate was about 3.9%. But it just depends on what interest rates do over the next 7 days.
Okay, and on the second bullet point on slide 8, when we say that USDA loans are not utilized to repay the notes, does that in any way mean that we wouldn't do some of the projects that are listed?
That's not what I was implying. Really, it's preserving the flexibility for any variety of what-if scenarios. It's just giving us the optionality.
I guess this is a question for engineering. None of this means that the way we decide how to utilize funds does not in any way impact our plans to do these projects, right? These are just different ways of financing them. But this doesn't imply or change those timelines? I see it.
I'm not
yes.
sure.
Okay.
Maybe you could repeat your question.
No,
I
I'm
think what you're
just-
asking is by rolling these notes, does it in any way change the timeline of the projects?
Of the projects that are identified by the USDA letters of condition, but I'm hearing no, so.
I don't want to play engineer, but
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I'm hearing that there's no issue there.
No issue of concern.
No, that's okay, just for the record, right? This is just financing the projects. The projects still are going to be constructed as planned, within the timeframe, assuming that we do work out the, extensions with USDA, based on their letter.
Okay.
And that they can cover the full cost of the project, because we're going back several years now, when the project costs were estimated and when these original loans were given to us. So
Okay.
there's gonna be some cost increases that we're hoping that they will cover when we ask for our extension.
Okay, thank you.
But that extension, we won't ask for it for 2 more years.
Yeah, unless we can work something else out with them, but according to their letter, they say it
They
has to be,
want us to wait until
Yeah.
near the end.
yeah.
Okay.
Be nice to know now, wouldn't it? Yeah, I know. Yeah, okay. All right, so you're asking us to approve this JP Morgan subsidiary as our new lender.
It's
So
to
some of
adopt
these-
the resolution, correct?
So some of these projects, aren't you gonna have some of them done before the 2027 date? I mean,
Yes, we already have completed the North Shore Pipeline Project, and the Reservoir project, which is its own separate letter of condition, is under construction right now. So the remaining project is the Dale Kyler project in Mecca and the 3 booster stations.
the only thing we're not gonna know is if they're gonna pay the increased costs. Okay.
Correct, for the booster stations. Yeah.
How much money would we be on the hook for if they don't?
I'm not sure, exactly. I could give you a range, maybe 6 to 10 million. But we haven't bid the projects out, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Boy, that's a big number.
Okay, so, yeah, the recommended action, adopt resolution 2025-06, authorizing the execution and delivery of a credit agreement, authorizing the issuance not to exceed $37.5 million revenue note, and approving the execution and delivery of certain documents and authorizing certain acts in connection therewith to roll the outstanding 2022A notes.
John, I'll move approval of resolution 2025-06.
Right,
Okay, sir.
right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. And to vote, all in favor say aye.
I'm sorry, does bond counsel or
You're on.
somebody, does bond counsel recommend a roll call vote on this?
We can do a roll call vote.
I think bond counsel's in this.
That's fine with me.
Just do a roll call
Why don't we
vote.
do a roll call just to be safe?
Doug, you should be able to talk now.
It's okay.
Yeah, roll call vote would be a good idea. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks. Okay, President Powell?
Aye.
Vice President Estrada?
Yes.
Director Bianco?
Aye.
And Director Aguilar?
Aye.
Okay, 4-0.
Passed 4-0. Just in the nick of time.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Darren.
Get us a good rate.
He's going now.
Next is D. This is this resolution 2025-07, approving this exception. Fran Nealon. Hi, good morning.
Good morning, President Powell, Ford, Jim. I'm here today before you is a recommendation, respectfully requesting the approval of an exception to the CalPERS 180-day waiting period for hiring a retiree as an annuitant for the district. So brief background. Currently, CalPERS requires this 180-day waiting period for a retiree to return as annuitant. However, there is government code that allows a public agency, specifically a board via resolution, to waive the waiting period. In addition, this work is of limited time. It has to be for specific duties, such as working on a special project. The special project is our ERP implementation, specifically our utility billing software, SpryPoint. We're interested in bringing back our previous customer service manager to assist us on the special project, to train and prepare staff to test, which is upcoming in June. He retired in December. 180 days would be after June, so we want to try to bring him in as soon as possible that he could start the training on our staff. One of our main goals is that our customers have that there's a seamless integration and there's no disruption to our customers, so it's really important that we train our staff thoroughly. Our previous customer service manager has 10 years of experience. He knows the software. He knows the new software, who's part of the selection committee. So this is something where we can just bring someone in and he can start immediately, hit the ground running. We have very tight timelines. We don't want to push back any deadlines, so that is why we're here requesting your approval.
Right.
Any questions?
When did he retire?
December 14th,
December 14th.
2024.
Pretty recent.
Yes, and I'll also add that when we bring back a retired annuitant, there's no benefits paid, there's no service credit earned. It's just for a specific amount of time, and that's it.
Okay. Sounds like you need him.
We do.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Thank you.
All right. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed 4-0.
Great, thanks.
Thanks, Fran.
Got that done. Written communications, we saw that in the packet. There's one informational report. I was just, even though our open session agenda is not too horrible, we have a pretty big closed session agenda. So if we could just hit the high points on this ERP update, would appreciate it.
Sammy, is that you?
I don't have a name on this one. Yeah, come on up.
Is this Sammy? Sammy Samantha?
Oh, right, down here.
I didn't list it on the top one.
Oh, I've been getting spoiled by having it listed at the top. All right, floor is yours.
Good morning, President Powell. Good morning, directors of the board. My name is Samantha Lopez. I am here to present the quarterly update to the ERP and utility billing system implementation. This is our program timeline. Again, I'm not going to spend much time here. We went over this on our last update. I will note that the SpryPoint utility billing timeline on the deploy date, the 9/13 date, it went. We changed it from 8/15 to 9/13 to extend it by 1 month. This is to allow us more time to complete our annual tax roll process before fully moving into the new system. This is just another high-level overview of the timeline. Again, I won't spend much time here noting the same change on this slide as the previous slide. During the last quarter, our partner Barry Dunn completed various activities to help support the project's success. Both the Workday and Spry Point activities are progressing on track and on schedule. The overall project is in green status. Issues were yellow at this time due to pending decisions surrounding the system of record. The decisions have since been made, and we are now pending integration considerations. This slide highlights the Workday project milestones and deliverables. All milestones are on track with a green status indicator. For the Workday project, over the last quarter, we have completed the plan phase, which gave us a baseline understanding of how the implementation process will work. Finance staff, HR, and IT staff also completed more in-depth trainings on functionality and configurations of the system. Over the next 3 months, we will focus on the architect and configure phase. At the end of this week, we will be turning in our configuration workbooks we have been refining on a weekly basis as we learn more about the system. These workbooks will be used to configure a test platform where staff can go in and test the system with real data, as well as train using that system. This slide highlights the Spry Point project milestones and deliverables. All milestones are on track with a green status indicator. For the Spry Point project, over the last quarter, we have completed additional discovery sessions and started configuring the Spry CIS platform. Staff started the process of testing the system's functionality to ensure the baseline configurations will meet the district's needs. Over the next 3 months, staff will continue their work in the Spry CIS environment, as well as begin configuring the Spry Mobile and Spry Engage environments using configuration workbooks that were introduced yesterday. This is our program budget summary. As of 3/31, we've spent a total of $2.8 million on the project. You will notice CVWD internal staff shows over. This was just an estimate. We didn't know how much staff involvement this was going to consider. This isn't an increase in dollars because our staff is already in our individual department budgets. This is more moving it from the department budgets to capitalized labor. So we originally estimated about $500,000 a year. Currently, we're at $513,000, so it's over that amount. This can vary from year to year depending on the activity, so we'll continue to monitor this as we go. The overall project is in green status. The Workday project is currently in the architect and configuration stage and is progressing on track. The Spry Point project is currently in the analyze, configure, and testing phases and is progressing on track. That is all for my update unless anyone has any questions.
Thank you. That was an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
And a lot of green, which is good.
Well, I think staff's been putting in a lot of time and effort, and it's being very well managed by the department directors involved. So I appreciate your support. I'm bringing in the retired annuitant to kind of help get ahead of that. Again, the Spry Point is the customer billing section, and Workday is pretty much everything else.
Good, good. Let's keep it up.
Excuse me.
Next is board general comments. Why don't we start with Director Aguilar?
I have no comments, John.
No
Bianco.
comments.
Just briefly wanted to make mention of a friend that passed away. He was a very close friend of ours, a family friend, and that's the mayor's brother, which I think some of you might have heard of his passing. So just wanted to let him and his family know that our thoughts and prayers are with him. We loved him very much. He was a person that was very devoted to the community. He previously worked for IID for many years. He served as a planning commissioner, chaired that commission for several years also. And so just wanted to make some comments in his memory and let his family know that we love him very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. No comments for me. Do we have any board requests for future agenda items? Hearing none. Let's go to meetings. Not even a whole lot of those, which is good. April 10th, Coachella Valley Conservation Commission.
I was not, I couldn't make that.
Okay. How about Director Aguilar on the 11th meeting with Patrick?
John, this was a meeting requested by Patrick to discuss primarily moving forward with the new conservancy and to develop some recommendations on what tasks might be taken by the conservancy versus the authority. And also at that time, Patrick indicated he was preparing a list of projects to be reviewed by the board, possibly at our next meeting, on projects that could address the $10 million set aside. Is it?
Okay, good, thanks. April 14th, Desert Valleys Builders Association. I was there. It was an interesting meeting. There are projects in the valley that are stalled out because of, in the East Valley, that are stalled out because they don't have power. And it's a big deal. It's a really big deal. And they don't know what to do about it. So the building industry is sort of stuck in the East Valley. And it's really unfortunate. And they don't have a good relationship with IID. It's hard. They're having a hard time getting anything with them.
Are they, do they have any suggestions when, as part of these meetings, are they
No, you know, I floated a few ideas, things that we've talked about, and yeah, everyone, it's hard because I think everyone's on a slightly different timeline and has a slightly different look at the problem and different solutions for different, you know, depending on where you are. And, you know, I think that a lot of it is microgrids. You know, people putting in gas-fired and solar-powered energy plants on their projects just to get them so that they can have power delivery. I mean, I feel like we're in the third world here. It's really tragic that this is happening.
Yeah, some of those, I've seen some of those come in where they're proposing now these microgrids with battery storage and basically.
Yeah.
But I think even in that scenario, they would want to hook up to IID's system as a backup.
Yeah, well, they're putting in gas-fired plants as a backup. Or that's the plan.
Okay, that's the backup.
That's the
We
plan.
have to fix this problem. This can't go on.
It's a big problem. So they talked about that for a long time. Moving on. We had our study session on the 15th. We had April 17th Agua Caliente mediation Zoom meeting that was fine. Do we have any other meetings? Is there a motion to approve per diem for the meetings reported on?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pass 4-0. General manager report.
I have nothing this morning, sir.
Council report.
No comments, Mr. President.
Oh. Department report.
We have one.
We do.
We do.
This is exciting.
It is. Hardly ever happens, but we got one today.
Are we not going to Sacramento?
Good morning.
Karen, good morning.
Got it. All right. Good morning. I just wanted to provide you all with an update on Senate Bill 466, which CVWD is proud to co-sponsor along with the City of Los Baños and the Community Water Systems Alliance. The bill is authored by Senator Ana Caballero from the City of Fresno, Central Valley. It is set to be heard in the Senate Environmental Quality Committee tomorrow. And we do not know if the bill, as of right now, the bill is going to be set on the consent agenda or if we are going to be allowed to testify. If so, Director Estrada has very graciously said that he would testify on CVWD's behalf in Sacramento tomorrow. But if it's on the consent agenda, they don't need us up there. After tomorrow, if the bill passes, whichever way, in the Environmental Quality Committee, it'll go to the Judiciary Committee for its second hearing next week. The bill provides critical legal protection from third-party liabilities for water agencies like ours as we work to comply with the Chromium 6 standards set by the State Water Resource Control Board, while working through our compliance plan. There is really strong support for Senate Bill 466. We received 25 different letters of support for the bill, and we'll continue to work really closely with the author's office along with our partners to make sure that our bill advances. Thank you.
Is that just Chrome 6 or does it cover other contaminants?
Just Chrome 6.
Just Chrome 6.
It's tough enough just to get Chrome 6
All right.
considered, so.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any others?
That's it, that's it.
All right, so
I don't think I'm going to Sacramento. So,
tomorrow?
no, it's too late. It's like in limbo. So,
Yeah. And you have to testify in person, huh? They don't let you. All right, so at this time, the board will recess into closed session to consider those items listed on the agenda. We will, following closed session, reconvene in open session to report out. The regular meeting is reconvened. We don't have any reportable action from closed session, so with no further business, we're adjourned.